Today we're going to be looking at some more Mate in One puzzles, and this time we're going to be seeing puzzles from both perspectives, just like the last few times. And there'll be a pawn in the bottom right corner telling you which perspective it's supposed to be. So you'll have 30 seconds for each puzzle, and you can always pause the video if you need more time. And if you haven't already, check out the other 5 videos about Mate in One, and if you want, you can check out the Christmas special I made about the history of chess. So, that being said, let's get started. So here's our first puzzle. You have 30 seconds starting now. Time is up. The checkmating move is queen into h7 checkmate. This is checkmate because the king is in check thanks to the h7 queen and can't move to h4, h6, or g6 because the queen is controlling all those squares. The king can't move to g4 because h3 pawn is controlling that square. And the king can't move to g5 because the black pawn is there, and the black king can't go on a black pawn. There's nothing to block the check or capture the queen, so this is checkmate. Let's move on to the next puzzle. So here's the next puzzle. You have 30 seconds starting now. Oh, time is up. The correct move is h5 checkmate. This is checkmate because the king is in check thanks to the h5 pawn and can't go to f5 or capture h5 because the g6 pawn is both controlling f5 and defending h5. The king can't move to g5 because the knight on e4 is controlling that square. The king can't move to h3 or f3 because the black king is controlling both those squares. As well as that, the king can't move to h4, g3, or f4 because those squares are all covered by white pawns, and the white king can't move on a white pawn. There's nothing to capture the h5 pawn, and there's no way to block a pawn check, so this is checkmate. Let's move on to the next puzzle. So here's the next puzzle. You have 30 seconds to solve it starting now. Time is up. The correct move is h4 checkmate. This is checkmate because the king can't capture h4 or f4 because they're both defended by the g5 pawn. The king can't move to h2, f2, or f3 because there are white pawns on all those squares, and the white king can't move on a white pawn. The king can't move to h3 or g2 because both of those squares are controlled by the black knight on f4. The king can't move to g4 because it is controlled by the pawn on f5. Therefore, this is checkmate. Let's move on to the next puzzle. So here's the fourth puzzle. You have 30 seconds to solve it starting now. Time is up. The correct move is queen into f8, checkmate. This is checkmate because the king is in check thanks to the f8 queen, and he can't move to g7 or g8 because the queen is controlling both those squares. As well as that, the king can't move to h7 because there's a black pawn there, and the black king cannot move on top of a black pawn. There's nothing to block the check or capture the queen, so this is checkmate. Let's move on to our final puzzle for today. So here's our final puzzle. You have 30 seconds starting now. Time is up. The correct move is queen to d1, checkmate. This is checkmate because the king is in check thanks to the d1 queen and can't move to e2 or e1 because the queen on d1 is controlling both those squares. And the king can't move to g2 or g1 because the g6 rook is controlling both those squares. And g1 is also controlled by the queen. And the king can't move to f2 because there is a white pawn there and the white king cannot move on a white pawn. There's nothing to block the check or capture the queen, so this is checkmate. So that was it, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any feedback, you can post it in the comments or post it in the form in the description of all the videos. The form is anonymous, so I won't know who filled it out. If you like the video, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. So it really helps me out. So thank you to whoever does that. And you can visit the chess playlist to see more chess videos. So thanks for watching and see you next week.